You know, just to pick up on what Yamiche and Dan have pointed out, it is not a symmetry of tactics. It is also complete cohesion of message. And I remember watching Donald Trump, I think it was that first trip, H.R. McMaster was the national security advisor, Dina Powell was his deputy, and I understood at the time that the trip was happening that at every stop they were desperately trying to get him to publicly affirm the United States of America's commitment to Article 5. I think we're the only country to ever cash in on Article 5, to ever need to be defended by a member nation after 9/11. You'll correct me if I have that wrong. But that was a sustained effort, not just to tarnish NATO, to destroy it. It was a campaign picked up by Tucker Carlson, who, until bombs started to fall from the sky, questioned its usefulness in not just this country, but in a free world. And I wonder how much of this is sort of reaping what has been sown.
You know, people say, why didn't Putin do this when Donald Trump was president? And there's a very simple answer to that. He didn't have to.
I've heard that from other intelligence officials.
He had an American president who was trying to unravel NATO, who was breaking the European Union apart. He had, whether it was his lackey or his partner, he was doing the work that Putin had aspired to do for the last 20 years. What's happening now is that Putin doesn't have someone doing that work for him. He's trying to do the thing that he's wanted to do all these years, which is to kind of separate the West from Russia, separate Ukraine from the West. And as inspiring as the example of the Ukrainians is, and Zelensky has turned into a Jewish Winston Churchill. And what he said last night in that speech was so moving because he said, any country, this can happen to any country under pressure. History makes heroes. And that's what happened in this country in the 18th century. That's a parallel now. So that's why it speaks to us about democracy. But the bad news is that the precedent for Russia is what they did in Syria in 2016, indiscriminate bombing. What they did in Chechnya, which was what made Putin's bones as a leader when he did mass bombing there. They don't have any sense of empathy for, or the people might, but Putin doesn't. He's a sociopath. So what we're going to see in the next days and weeks is going to be brutal. And this has changed history not just for a few months or a few years. This has changed history for decades. And for the rest of our lifetimes, we're going to be reckoning with the consequences of that.